afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Tracy Wood. I am the CEO of the DNA Company. I have with me tonight one of our co-founders, Kashif Khan, is in the house. Very excited to see you, sir. We have our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Boyce Berkel. Good evening. We have our Chief Science Officer, Dr. Krista Kosterman. And then we have our Dean of Students for the DNA University, Dr. Laura Vartan. So welcome all of you and thank you for being here. Tonight, we're going to share with you a program that has been developed by the two people that you see on the screen, not including me. We're going to talk a little bit about the program and the study that we're going to publish behind it. So, Dr. Berkel, why don't you say hi to everybody and let them know kind of your background a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit further.
Yes, well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. We're here to let you know that there is a program that could help you. You're out there. Many of you have been frustrated because of the various attempts you've made to get help, either in the conventional sense and sometimes even in the holistic sense. And one of the things that got me involved in looking at this is because many times we don't step back and look at the big picture. So in managing these issues over the years, by training, I'm a surgeon. By profession, I'm an emergency room physician, but I've been involved in holistic medicine for the past 40 many years. And in looking at the frustrations that people are going through, I know because they come to me, they get referred to me, looking at what's available out there, it seems to be segmented in different ways. Nobody steps back and looks at the big picture and puts it all together into a comprehensive plan or program. So what I've done is looked at what's out there, looked at what I do, look at what I've learned over the years since COVID and managing COVID itself and long COVID, and put it into a comprehensive plan. In that plan, I've also looked at the background, because I'm also trained in metabolic oncology, and looking at that whole picture and putting all the pieces together into a program that will cover, as far as we know, the bases that we are aware of that are pertinent to people who are going through long COVID. So that is pretty much the background and my motivation for putting this together, because at the end of the day, we need to provide relief. And at the end of the day, we not only need to provide relief, but I look at COVID as a wake-up call for many people, a wake-up call. I need to pay attention to my health here. And once I get past this COVID, I need to be paying attention to the rest of my health for the rest of my life, because for many of us, this is a wake-up call.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Berkel. And Kashif, you look at this really from the biohacking community and the people that look at alternative and functional medicine differently. Share with us what your thoughts are around what we're trying to do in this study.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really cool about Dr. Berkel's work, because when I heard Dr. Berkel, like, okay, I'm going to hear another roadblock. It's going to be another medical answer that really doesn't solve the problem. Then he started talking about things like methylene blue, and I was like, oh, this guy actually knows so much, right? And then it's like he's taking all of what he knows from allopathic medicine and combining it without a bias, which I admire him for, that it doesn't matter where the information comes from, it matters what the best information is, which is where a lot of doctors get hung up. And he's taken all the best information, whether it came from the biohacking world, whether from some study in Japan, whether it's something that happened right here in the United States, wherever, and he's taken all the best pieces, like he said, and put it into a comprehensive plan. And so when I started looking at it, I saw that what's missing. People are going to their doctor saying, I don't feel well. And the thing that they don't feel well with, whether it's brain fog, infertility, whatever, is getting addressed at the surface level, right? Then there's the other extreme of people going the back. Biohacking would say, I don't want to talk to my doctor. I'm going to inject this and take this peptide and do this, whatever, without any guidance whatsoever. And there was nothing in the middle. And it's because those, there's a lot of restrictions on the medical side in terms of what a doctor is even allowed to do and what they're told and taught and where their information comes from. And there's a lot of cultural issues over here, which is like trying to stay away from allopathic medicine. What can I do myself? So when you, Tracy, first put me and Dr. Berkel in a room, I don't know, 6, 7 months ago, and I was like, well, what is this program going to look like? And he put something on the screen. I was like, wow. It's like, it's everything. It's the medical side covered, and it's all the biohacks that I already know about and others that I didn't even think about that are addressing stuff from the right place. And it's all together in one place, and one guy knows how to navigate it all. That's what's been missing, right? So the really cool thing now that's now happening is taking all that and putting it into a study to prove to the world that this is the way, right? So that everybody else can also benefit from it. So that's where I'm excited, where, Dr. Berkel's done this incredible job taking it all, putting it all into what he humbly calls a plan, but it's really just taking the best of everything the way it's supposed to be, right? So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you both here. I'm going to share with everybody real quick how the study is going to work, what the high level details are. I'm also going to introduce some of the clinical team that will be doing the actual clinical encounters. This study is a 6-month commitment. So anyone that registers for this, you're in it for 6 months. During that time, you will be given a full intake. You will do a history of present illness. You will do a one-to-one with a clinical practitioner where they take all of your information, any supplements you're taking, any medications you're taking, any chronic conditions that you are being treated for. All of that information will be anonymized within the study and will be part of the published outcome. And what Kashif said, I think, is really important. We are not trying to take a position. We are trying to solve a problem. And that problem is a legitimate concern. People are being treated every single day all over the world with these symptoms that really can be linked back to COVID and then subsequently long COVID. So there is a lot of reporting of information. That will be the responsibility of the people that are participating. Vanny, if you could bring up the information for me real quick. We're going to help not only educate you in what we believe long COVID is, how we believe it manifests, how we believe it presents, symptomology and whatnot. You can advance to the next one, Vanny. But we're also going to help you with additional support for your health, your well-being, and then putting it all together, factoring in your functional genomics, your epigenetics, your nutrigenomics. All of those things will be tied together within this particular program. Next slide, please. We're going to have some different treatment approaches. I am not a doctor, so I'm not going to speak to these, but Kashif and Dr. Berkel will be speaking to these in a few minutes. The core idea is report, test, and there will be labs involved here. Any of you that have insurance will be able to give you lab slips. If you are not someone with insurance, we can give you a lab slip and we can help you find a reasonably priced option that's proximate to you, hopefully. But all of that will be part of the program. Next slide, please. Of course, I've just introduced you to really the two that are going to drive this program and drive the information and the outcome. Next slide, please. And then our clinical team. So we have Dr. Tracy Steady Hardcastle, who's actually traveling today. Dr. Laura Varden, who's here. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Varden. She's a prominent speaker in biohacking and in functional medicine. And then our own in-house certified functional genomics practitioner, Justin Harris. So I think both of them are here. If you guys want to click on your camera real quick and say hi, that would be awesome.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you here. My name is Justin, and I'm so excited about this program. I think I tend to represent that space between education and application when it comes to health coaching. Get your boots on the ground and let's really apply some of these anti-inflammatory and detoxification lifestyle factors to help your body to rewire itself and make it new. Get rid of some old cells, build some new cells. And I think that's what the aim is for this. And Dr. Varden is absolutely the captain. And I'm looking forward to doing this with you as well.
Well, thank you so much for that, Justin. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone being here. This is going to be something that you can take with you to really impact your life in the most beneficial way. And you have an incredible team supporting you in this program, in this study. I actually have been in the research and hands-on with COVID, with all this since 2020. I actually sat on a COVID-19 task force committee in the largest county in New York State, starting back in 2020, and have done a lot of research in this, and have worked with several clients who have dealt with long COVID, that I've worked with them to help them get through and, feel better.
Right.
So that's really what it's about, is reclaiming your life, feeling better, getting your life back. That's what we're here to do. So I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Excellent, Dr. Varden. Thank you very much. So the clinical team will be, once you're a registered participant and you're part of the study, the clinical team will meet with you one-on-one, and it will happen every month during the 6 months of your program. Next slide, please. So what does it cost to do the program? It's $499 a month. You're going to have multiple points of contact and multiple treatment points. So you will have a meeting with your practitioner every single month. There will be a webinar that either Dr. Berkel, Kashif, both, or the practitioner teams will be hosting while we go through what people's symptomology is, what kind of reports we're having, and then it'll be a place for you to share what's happening for you, should you choose to do so. And then again, the additional education that you'll need as we go through the program. There's an app involved. Next slide, please. There's an app involved. That app will be something that you can report in. You'll also have your electronic medical record system. And again, you will be anonymized. So people will not be looking at your data knowing that it's your data. And of course, the app is going to be definitely used for symptoms and symptom checking. This is program approved for FSA and HSA. And depending on your insurance, you could even be eligible for reimbursement. And then, of course, it is a healthcare expense. Depending on your adjusted gross income, it becomes a tax deduction. Next slide, please. These are the labs. And again, we'll provide the lab slip. And if you have insurance, your insurance will process most likely 100% of these labs. If there's a particular test they're not willing to process, again, we will find somewhere for you to be able to use the cash option. Next slide, please. And the session dates. So the sessions will be the third Monday of every month. And then, of course, I've already introduced to you your practitioner team. And your clinical encounter may take an hour. It may take longer. It depends on your symptoms. It depends on what's happening for you. It depends on how we find you as a patient, right? So we'll make sure that we meet every person where they are. That's really the important part of this. This study, like Kashif mentioned, really can move the needle, not just here in the United States and in Canada, but all over the world, and help people grow more research. You know, in American medicine, we've relied on standard of care. Standard of care was set back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and there's not been a lot of movement except in the last 10 years. And really, biohacking has been part of what has advanced that, what has really driven a lot of that movement. So last slide, please. And this is how you register. So this will come up at the end of the conversation. You can scan it, register it. You can register now. But that's really kind of the guts of the program. I see there's a lot of questions in the chat window. We will be answering those. So please be patient. We'll be answering them directly. And then Kashif will open the Q&A towards the end. So I'm going to kick it back to you, Kash, and Dr. Berkel, and help these people understand what could be happening to them. Thanks, guys.
All right. So Dr. Berkel, when I looked at your document, the thing that stood out to me is you were talking about diagnostically on, on the medical side, but also I saw things in there like methylene blue. And I was like, and this was early, by the way. These are things that people are hearing about now, but you had those thoughts early. My first thing is, I don't know, how did you come across this so early in the game? Because most people were still figuring these things out and you already kind of knew them.
Okay, so yeah, I've been an early in the game guy. If I give you a little bit more of my background, if you go back to 1971, 72, I pioneered the research in cardiac echocardiography. Makes sense? So anyone who gets an echocardiogram now, I was a student at the time in medical school. 2 of my summers were spent doing that. Most of my years have been kind of pioneering. For 20 years, I worked with people in post-herpetic neuralgia. And for years, I was the go-to person on the holistic side of managing post-herpetic neuralgia as pain after shingles. Make sense? In working with that and working with the things I was working with, I found Dr. Philpott and became very adept in researching with him and working with magnetic therapy. So when COVID came along, yeah, you begin to look, you begin to see what's happening, you begin to look who's doing what, you begin to, because again, if the tire is flat, we can be looking at how to put air in the tire, but somewhere there we have to search for the nail and plug the hole in. So with over the years, and in the holistic side of it, yeah, you have to be looking at what's the cause, because until we address and fix the cause, we are not going to be fixing anything except managing the symptoms and watching people progressively get worse. So from that standpoint, I began to listen to, look at, educate myself on what's happening out there. So that's how I came across a lot of these things. And that's how I began to like stepping back, looking at the big picture, as I said before, and seeing, now, wait a minute, this is fine, but what happens if we put them together? That's fine, but what happens if we stagger them? Many people, you talk to them about a situation, they say, I've tried that. Well, very few people realize, you can get in a car to drive someplace and you can try the gas pedal, but unless you put your foot on that pedal and keep it there for the duration of the journey, it's not going to happen. So many times what happens is in both the conventional and the holistic approach to medicine, there's not that follow through. There's not that consistency. There's not stacking one thing on the other, monitoring, making adjustments as you go. So that's what we're putting in the program here, where we put things together, we stack, and to answer your question specifically, just by looking at the big picture.
And
See
so
what's it about.
what is the intention, or what do you see as a threat? Is the threat that COVID, the virus, is lingering in people's bodies and there's work to be done there? Or is it the spike protein that's causing inflammation, or is it both? Like, what is the goal?
Okay, so it's more than that. It's a combination of things. Okay, yeah, the spike protein is in there, but lots of us got hit with the spike protein in a system that was already compromised. So each one's different, and their reaction and response to the spike protein is different. But yes, we have to address that. Most chronic illness, in fact, all chronic illnesses are precipitated by inflammation. So we have to address that. But if we address that and don't address the spike protein, and there's a residual spike protein, and I learned that, like I said, in working with postherpetic neuralgia, we had to go back and look at the herpes virus and see what can we do. Doesn't matter what we're working with them until we got the virus out. It's going to be perpetually simmering in the background. Makes sense? So as long as the spike protein is in there, we're going to be perpetually simmering this inflammation in the background. And then the inflammation is going to affect the mitochondria, the inflammation is going to affect the immune system, and on and on and on. And we're working, but it's like forever, one step forward, two steps backward, one step forward, two steps backward. Makes sense? And never
Yeah.
getting from where we were to where we need to be.
And is there any difference between, I got the spike protein from the virus or I got it from vaccinations? Is it the same work that needs to be done?
Yeah, if the spike protein is in your system, the spike protein is in your system. And it's, a lot of that is a gray area, but we have to assume that the spike protein is in your system, because that's, if we give you this to develop immunity, then you develop that immunity. But what we know about the spike protein, it lingers in your system. Makes sense? So it has to be addressed, one form or another. So if you've had COVID, if you've been exposed to COVID, just being in the environment, lots of people, as you know, have tested for COVID, but they've really never had COVID. So the viruses are there. And if the viruses are there, then the spike protein of the virus are there. And so unless we address them, then as the original cause, then the chronic inflammation that they may be causing and the damage that they may be causing to the mitochondria and on and on and on are not addressed. So we have to go to the foundation. We have to go to the beginning and fix the cause.
What I kind of hear you saying is there's this whole concept of something new, spike protein, virus, and vaccine, wherever it came from, right? There's the virus itself. Then there's the foundation or the terrain that it entered into.
Mhm.
So there's the task at hand, which is we're here about this long haul COVID study. But then each one of us has a unique story in terms of where were we at, what was our terrain, what was our condition, what was our concern, where we're and based on that, the solutions may be unique or different. So is there a step one, everybody goes through some kind of spike protein detox protocol, or is even that customized based on the unique terrain?
Yeah, from that standpoint, we try to individualize what we do, but we always lean to the reality that spike protein is out there. We've been exposed to it. We need to address it. The way we may address it is somebody who has really never had COVID or never had the vaccine. Well, he may not be on whatever we're doing to address the spike protein as long as someone who has. Make sense? Yeah, but if spike protein is out there, we need to address it. If you've been exposed to it, you've had a vaccine, we may address it a little different or a little more aggressively or a little more in terms of the time you're involved in that particular aspect of your care. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So there's some level of customization based on, and I think that's why you're also the symptom tracker is running because we're given the monthly calls. We have an amazing practitioner team here. There's you leading the team. The response may be different to each individual based on the symptom tracker is saying. So there's a starting point intake of like where are you at, and everyone's going to be in a different place.
Mhm.
And aside from virus and vaccine and spike protein and all this, there's an innate foundational like terrain question, whether it's metabolic dysfunction or inflammation or hormone dysregulation, whatever. And those considerations create a custom program, which is really where people are getting stuck. Where it's, and I was going to ask you a question, but I think I already know the answer based on what you're saying, which is you see all these guys online that are advertising spike protein detox or here's a spike protein supplement or things of the nature. Is that enough? But it sounds like no, because that's one part of the story and you don't know whose story it's entering into. And there's so much more. And if you don't deal with the rest of it, You don't reach the finish line.
Mhm. Exactly right. Yeah. You have to start, but you have to go through the process and you have to complete the journey. Yeah. Addressing that's the first step in the journey. The journey may be 1,000 miles for some people. It may not be that long for others, but that's the first step in the journey. Then we got to do the next step and the next step and the next step based on that individual's metabolic status and based on the feedback we get from month to month based on that in that tracker.
So step one, correct me if I'm wrong, someone's going to get blood work done,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, ideally, we'd like to get blood work on everyone.
Right.
Yeah, the whole idea is to test. Okay, yeah, we need to test, we need to see where we are, because we may be certain places in terms of our symptoms, but there are always hidden things in there that we don't know, that may not necessarily be related to COVID. We may find a thyroid issue, we may find that someone may not be aware of, we may find, and so on and so on and so on. So unless we address those things, we're not helping. Makes sense? So yeah, we start with basic lab work. We see where you are. We see where you are in terms of the things, the parameters we're looking for in the lab work. And then we can follow you in terms of your symptoms. And we can also follow repeat lab work as we go to see how those parameters are improving and what else we need to be addressing based on what the parameters we find in follow-up blood testing as well.
Got it. So that so as you said, follow-up blood works. That mean so this is where I'm excited about this because what I see happening out there is a lot of here's your detox supplement. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of and really high profile people. Um, like even Dr. McCullough, for example, was working with a supplement company around a detox protocol, which is okay.
Mhm.
But then again, the terrain, the foundation, and so that's one thing. Then I saw a lot of standalone biohacking tools like go get your nicotine patch, go take some methylene blue, you know, go get some natokinase, and individual pieces of this greater story. And I didn't see anyone testing or validating because I don't even think they knew what they were working on.
Mhm.
Right? And so if you don't know, and that's the part that was opened my eyes to if there's no finish line, what are you testing for, right? If there's no starting point, what are you testing for? And that tells me that what you're doing, and that's why I was excited about what you're doing, is there is an intention. There's an intention, there's a goal, and the reason why there's a goal because you understand the biology of long haul. You understand the biology of vaccine injury, and so you know what to test for, and then you know what to test for again to prove that we actually got an outcome beyond just how do you feel, right? So that part excites me because that's been missing from any other program I've seen. So where in that vein, what do you see out there that people need to know about that is, excuse me, that isn't working? All these answers that are like, you know, there's a lot of one size fits all type answers out there.
Yeah.
What should people avoid?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much what they should avoid. It's not so much what is not working. It's why it's not working. And the why it's not working is because it's segmented. Make sense?
Yeah,
Imagine someone trying to bake cookies, let's say, and all they learned about is the flour.
yeah,
And all the other guy learned about is the butter. And all
yeah,
the other guy is telling them about is the baking powder. Like that.
yeah.
And then somebody's telling them about the oven. But nobody's putting them together.
Mm,
But unless they're together, and it's not necessarily together, it's so much flour and so much baking powder. And it's not an oven, it's an oven at 300 degrees for 40 minutes.
hmm
Okay, it's not, okay, it's a matter of putting things, because unless we go through that process and put those ingredients in a systematic way and then get to the oven in a systematic way at specific guidelines, cookies are not going to happen at the end.
hmm
Makes
No,
sense?
that makes
So
sense.
if the goal is to get better, the goal is to be long COVID free. The goal is to be, okay, yeah, then we have to step back, look at the picture, look at all the things that are out there, and see how we can put these things together, get that recipe together, get us to the oven, whatever that means in the context of what we're doing. And at the end, we would like cookies with chocolate chips.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, and that's exactly what's been missing, because at least in my world, I see a lot of pieces and a lot of things that they work, but they're not the full answer. And so they work a little bit and someone gets, it's like you said, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And let's just get straight to what the whole story needs to look like, and then test it and prove it, right? So there's something empirical where people can see on paper that things are working. And that's this whole complete package, like what you started with, is what's been missing, right? So, okay, now having said that, so somebody enrolls, we just talked about first step, blood work. Then we're going to get blood work back. That's going to drive your decision on where to start, or is everyone starting in the same place? What would be the next step?
Yeah, that'll drive my decision as where we start. And then not necessarily where we start. Yeah, it'll drive my decision to where we start based on what's happening. Because depending on their situation, there are certain things you may want to get in place before you begin to address something else, just the way of the dynamics of the way the system work. Everyone would probably start with, yes. In fact, let me step back a bit, okay? The place I think everyone needs to start is developing the right mindset. Developing the right mindset, because it's the mindset that gives us, right now, we're making people aware of what's going on out there, aware of what is, aware of the program that we have, and aware of the steps that need to be followed to make it work. Okay, and that awareness makes them begin thinking. And then they begin thinking, and they say, I like that idea. And then they begin to believe in the concept. And then they step out. They still don't know, but they're willing to take that step of faith. And without faith, action is not going to happen. Makes sense? But it's not action that helps you. It's consistent action. Makes sense? So without the right mindset, yeah, we started, we try it, a couple of weeks go by, we don't notice much of anything, and so we give up by the wayside. But if we set the right mindset, then there are things we're going to expect, and that's the other thing, having the right expectations. Makes sense? Yeah, there are things we're going to expect, and there are things we're going to understand that we're going to need to be doing in terms of consistency, in terms of following through, in terms of all those things. And in the program, we provide this situation, the environment that'll help people along that path. Because until that consistency happens, and you put your foot on the gas to start a journey, until the consistency of keeping that foot on the gas happens, journey's end will never happen. Makes sense? So if we start on the journey to health and we put our foot on that gas pedal, so to speak, consistency needs to be, or else that be healthy, be COVID-free is not going to happen. So for those things to happen, we need to have the right mindset. And so I have information available to help people develop the right mindset. And then once they have that right mindset, then we begin the program. We begin, everyone, somewhere we have to begin to detoxify, because things are not going to work right if toxins are in our system. If we're detoxifying, then we have to detoxify ourselves. We have to cleanse our liver, we have to cleanse our kidneys, we have to cleanse our gut, the things we have to do so that healing can begin to happen. And then obviously the external toxins, the spike protein, all those things have to be done. So if you're asking if there is a starting point, yeah, we get the right mindset. We start by cleansing, and those things may go on for a while. In the meantime, we begin to put in place, depending on that person's evaluation, the things that will begin to get him on the road to getting better.
So evaluation of blood work, which is not direct COVID, it's more metabolic, hormonal, like whatever is going on in the terrain. While,
Exactly right.
yeah, okay.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And both have to happen in order to get to the finish line.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay. Okay. So how long should somebody expect? I know you said it could be a few feet or it could be 10,000 miles, but say somebody walks in with metabolic dysfunction, pre-diabetic, and you know, okay stats in terms of weight and etc., but they have fatigue and they have brain fog and all the signs of long haul. How long would they expect? Is there like an immediate bump and there's a plateau, or is it just a gradual, moving
Okay.
along?
Yeah, in my experience, people begin to notice changes within 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Make
Mhm.
sense? Yeah, yeah. But then it's a process. If we're looking at things on a scale of 0 to 10, make sense? And you start off at 8. By the first month, 6 weeks, you will be down to 8, but you started a trend.
Mhm.
Make sense? And that's what we follow. We follow the trend. So if someone starts off at 6, they have things and they're at 6, obviously it's going to take them a lot less time than someone with that same issue who starts off at a 10. It's just, okay. So the 6-month program gives us enough time to see if a person is responding and benefiting from. And so far, looking at the parameters, there is a progressive improvement or decrease in those numbers, scale of 1 to 10, at the end of 6 months. There may still be a ways to go. But at the end of 6 months, you can decide, okay, I got it. I can follow through with this. Okay, I need some more help. I may need some more guidance. I may need some more. And then a decision can be made at that time.
Got it. Okay, and then you've also trained an amazing team here. I mean, not that they've also already been doing amazing work, but in terms of your model, like in this program, so Dr. Lara, Justin, everyone's going to be supporting and helping. So somebody comes in now, we've got to the point where you've analyzed and assessed, and so now there's blood work, there's a plan. It seems like it's going to be somewhat custom for each person because you're looking at their terrain plus the COVID itself. It could be 2 months, it could be 8, 9 months, 12 months, depends where they're at, right? So in that journey, where does it go from Dr. Berkel is looking at blood work to somebody like Justin comes along? What will he be supporting with?
Now, maybe I misunderstand your question.
Sure. So meaning that we have an amazing team here, right? There's people that are, it's not in there's yourself, there's nurse practitioners on the hotline that'll be able to support whenever anyone needs 24/7. There's a symptom tracker so people can actually communicate directly with the study. Then you have Dr. Laura, Justin, and other check-in calls. So what's happening and what's going on with those calls?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, everyone will be involved with the process of evaluation. Okay. I see myself as the fall guy. The fall guy. Make sense? Yeah. You hit a roadblock. You hit a stumbling block. You have a question. There's something. Then that ends on my desk, and we help. We address. We suggest. We go through. So
Right.
some people may be at that stage at the very beginning.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. Yeah, yeah, at the very beginning. And some people may never be at that stage. And some people, so yeah, it's everywhere people are, we have the ability to meet them. We have the ability to help them. So if someone's at that stage at the very beginning, then I see them at the very beginning. Except if someone is not at that stage at the very beginning, then the team will take them to where they need to be and where they are. If there is a stumbling block, there is a hiccup, there is a question, it all comes back to my desk. And that's how we've worked.
Okay,
So
yeah, that makes sense. That's what I was trying to understand. So it's like even the interaction is custom based on need. So there's a pre-baked plan, which I've seen you work on, which is incredible. And I've seen all the pieces that you put in there, and they're the exact right pieces, both from the allopathic side, and the sort of longevity biohacking side. You blended them beautifully. Now it's like, how do you deliver this? Well, we have an incredible team here that knows how to do the work you've built and the program you built, implemented, but you're there whenever anyone needs support, which is awesome. So having said that, there's a bunch of questions here, and I think we'll just go straight to what people need to know, which they're asking, right? So I'm going to go through, there's some questions I may be able to answer, some you may be able to answer. There may be some that require logistics from other people on the team. We'll see as we go along. So Christina is talking about EBV, Epstein-Barr. So the question is, will it be part of a study in terms of treatment? I don't think we're trying to treat Epstein-Barr, but I do know that we see that COVID has caused a sort of trigger, or this dormant virus that lives sort of as a stealth pathogen gets triggered and provoked. So how does that get integrated in the study?
Okay. Okay, so if someone comes in with Epstein-Barr, they're in the program, then we know that already the terrain started with that additional issue. Make sense? Yeah, we
Yep.
still have to work on decreasing the toxins. We still have to get the right mindset. We still have to work on reducing the inflammation. We still have to do all the basic things, get the mitochondria back into function. And then if there's additional need in terms of the Epstein-Barr, then we begin to address that as well.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Okay. So
So,
a lot of people are experiencing this where COVID triggered these dormant and cell pathogens to activate. You know, people didn't know they had Epstein-Barr, now they have symptoms, Lyme, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, so the really cool thing about Dr. Berkel's work is he's done it all before, right? So what's new is this COVID program, but he's worked on all the other stuff. So how they're related, but also how they independently need to be served. Robert saying, what can one do about tendon and muscle degeneration from long haul? This one I haven't seen. So people are experiencing like musculoskeletal type degeneration.
okay. Yeah, I imagine that can happen because those things degenerate because there's inflammation.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. And so with spike protein and all that, many times it settles in the joint. And so to get the inflammation in the joint, and what deteriorates is the inflammation. Yeah, okay. So when we're working on throughout the program on reducing and arresting inflammation, then we're addressing those issues as well.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
interesting. You remind me of, I was working on a client that had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, like this connective tissue disorder, right? And they were diagnosed, they had it. And as we worked on it, we realized that they had an incredible mold toxicity issue that led to this eventual diagnosable Ehlers-Danlos. So I hear what you're saying, and I get where high inflammation, it's a Russian roulette of which hardware in your body is going to fail first. And for somebody it's connective tissue, for somebody it's tendon, for somebody it's cardiovascular, for somebody it's brain fog. It can hit anywhere, right? This next one I think I can handle.
Before
Renee's.
you go to the next one, I just wanted to add here, in my introduction, I mentioned the fact that working with Dr. Philpott and with magnetic therapy and so on. I had a patient who came in, and with all the issues she had and classical long COVID issues, she was referred to me by an orthopedic surgeon, believe it or not, because she was seeing him for the severe back and neck pain she was having. And she had been seeing him for a year.
Wow.
Makes sense? But with what I know about magnetic therapy and so on, we got her adding that to whatever it was she was doing. And within 2 months, she stopped going to physical therapy. Things improved. Makes sense?
Yeah.
So
Well,
you address the basic issue, the basic inflammation, and then you address in terms of specifics. Okay, it's a joint, it's a muscle, it's a tendon. You put things into play because magnetic therapy adds to the reduction of inflammation. Make sense?
Yep.
So yeah, it's just a matter of addressing the issues that are there at the time and having access or knowledge to the modalities that will help the most in that particular situation.
Yep. Makes sense. Renee, good to see you, Renee. We met before in other events. So Vaxax is a product that I actually helped formulate. Two thoughts there. One is I can answer your question, but I also add a layer to the answer, which is what we're talking about here today is far more in-depth and comprehensive. So Vaxax is a supplement that I help formulate, which has nattokinase, bromelain, some things in it that are known to help with blood clotting um, and spike. So yeah, it's supposed to be 2 pills twice a day. Um, but I would tell you that that's a very entry level way to deal with it versus what Dr. Berkel's talking about, right? Shedding, I do believe, is a very real concern. I have clients that, for example, menopausal women that start having their period after going on a flight because they're shed on, right? So yeah, it's a very real. So if you're unvaccinated, your husband's vaccinated, you're vaccinated, right? So and it needs to be dealt with because whether you made a choice or not, that level of relationship, you have it. So Sandy, how will you work with patients who are extremely sensitive to intervention due to mast cells? So this is an interesting one because this comes up a lot where when you have a challenge of this nature and it lingers, it's going to lead to autoimmune type issues or mast cell activation. And there's a bit of an order of operations where, okay, all the work that Dr. Berkel wants to do still needs to be done, but we need to deactivate the mast cell first and make room for that work, right? And that's where you have to have the experience. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about sort of making way for the work by turning mast cell off.
Yeah, again, you put all the things in place and then you address the issue of the mast cells in terms of whatever modality you use to address that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think a lot of people here don't even realize that that's where they're at.
mhm,
A lot of people don't realize that their body's got to a place where they're hypersensitive, and it's a mast cell issue. And this is where working with somebody that knows what they're doing,
mhm.
you could get stuck in like, this didn't work, that didn't work. No, your body's not ready for it to work because you needed to deal with the mast cell first,
Yeah.
right?
So a part of what we do, we address that as well. Yeah, we look at that. Just based on how we're looking, it may come up in the questionnaire that people fill out initially, or people may not be aware that it is a mast cell issue that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Where based on the assessments we're doing, we should be able to identify that and say, this is what we're dealing with, in addition to all the other issues that you have, and we need to address it. So
Yeah.
all those factors that we're aware of, all those are things that we have a way of evaluating and have a way of addressing.
Yeah. Bradley's saying, when does COVID become long haul? He said he's 17 days in. So what's a clinical answer to long haul COVID? Is it a month, 2 months, 3 months? Is there even an
Okay,
answer?
so okay. So we look at COVID, we look at 30 days. Make sense? Yeah. 30 days, most people by 30 days, you should be better. Yeah, by 30 days, you should be better. Okay. It's lingering, going on, second, third month, then you fall into that long COVID category. That
Got it.
long COVID category is, again, depending on the individual. A year from now, they may be well enough to function, with some mild lingering symptoms. I've seen people 3-4 years and they still can't get out of bed. Makes sense? Yeah. So it all depends. But
So Pam's question,
after
sorry,
30 days, yeah, after 30 days, you're falling into that long COVID category. Yeah,
got
anything
it.
longer than that confirms that, yeah, this is long COVID. We need
So
to.
kind of similar answer. Pam saying she just got COVID and influenza. Like she's wondering if she's a good candidate. So again, Pam, it's 30 days is when it's like you're in that category, right? And then you also have the Hashimoto's. That would be an interesting thing because your body's already in an autoimmune state. Your immune system is confused and doing things it shouldn't be doing. So that's a challenging context, but that's the exact type of challenge that Dr. Berkel likes to get to the finish line, right? So, Tia, how will treatment approach different if you have COVID vaccine injury? Is it the same or different for vaccine injury versus viral?
No, there may be a little difference, and a lot depends on again your physiology and what's happening. But basically, it's the same. Basically, it's the same.
Got it.
Depending
Okay.
on, because you had the vaccine, it may have affected your in terms of its concentration, if you use that term, in your system. But it's basically the same. Mhm.
Christy's asking that her brother got asthma and paralysis of half of his diaphragm after COVID. Is this in the long haul COVID bucket? Paralysis of the diaphragm.
Yeah, I understand that, but I didn't ask, is this?
Is this would be considered a long haul COVID symptom?
Yes, 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 yes. If he has, yeah, if COVID affected any organ,
Mm-hmm.
including the diaphragm, the heart, yeah, that's all
Got
part
it.
of
Okay.
COVID.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people like the outcome. This is why even just step one of realizing you have long haul COVID
Mm,
sometimes is tricky for people because there's a very real symptom that is very easily diagnosable as something else.
mm,
Infertility, brain fog, cardiovascular issues that get siloed and separated as what they are, but and then it just never goes away because you're not dealing with a root, which is the long haul COVID itself. So many, many people that are listening here today, if things changed after vaccination or after COVID, you have long haul COVID essentially, right? Because that's
mm.
most likely the case. Carrie, what long COVID criteria will be using to select participants? Not sure I would qualify. So in terms of qualifies, essentially symptom continuing after 30 days.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Something's changed after, yeah. I wasn't like this before. I got the shot. I got COVID. Now all of a sudden now something's different, whatever it is. I have asthma. My heart's not right. It's racing. I can't think like I used to. My microbiome, my gut's all discombobulated. My
Yeah.
joints ache. Whatever it is, there's been a change.
Yeah. So a change
And
that
yeah.
lingers more than 30 days post-COVID or vaccination.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I suffer from brain fog for the past 5 years. Is lithium orotate safe to use with tachycardia due to four leaky heart valves since 2 episodes of COVID disease? So Anne has four leaky heart valves due to getting COVID twice.
Mhm.
Um, she has brain fog and she wants to use lithium orotate. So wondering if that's safe for the brain fog, the lithium.
Lithium is safe for brain fog.
Yeah, she's wondering.
Um, well, why is she taking? Yeah, we'll have to find out why she's taking lithium. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, I think lithium is not the first place to go. There's so
Uh,
many other things you could do. If you have brain fog for 5 years post-COVID, you probably have a brain full of spike protein. Your brain has a very high density of mitochondria, and so that's where spike protein likes to live in your mitochondria. And so the brain fog, the lithium may be the mood regulating answer, but it's not going to give you back your brain function, right? So that's a question of N. You're going to come into this program, you're going to register. Step one is testing, and testing will tell us what's going on, where's the inflammation, what are your metabolic markers, etc. And that may guide things, but there's also the practical side of understanding the brain fog isn't you don't it's not something to mask. It's something to detoxify the brain of spike protein and increase cellular energy in the mitochondria of the brain. And so there's two layers of work to be done here. So I understand your question, but
not only that, Kashif, but brain fog. We have to address neuroinflammation.
neural inflammation, yeah,
Yeah, we have to address neuroinflammation because
yeah,
no matter what we're fixing, lithium air in the tire.
yeah,
Until we take the nail out and plug the hole, it doesn't matter air in the tire.
yep,
It's not going to work. Okay.
yep,
So brain fog, neuroinflammation. We have to address neuroinflammation. The
yep.
lithium may be helpful and it may be something that has its place. Makes sense. But until we address the cause of brain fog is neuroinflammation. And neuroinflammation starts in the gut with
Mm.
the vagus nerve and all that. Until we understand that and address that, we can't get past the brain fog.
Mm. Aditya is saying, what are the major genes significantly contributing to lack of recovery from acute COVID and contributing to long COVID? There's a lot, Dr. Berkeley, welcome to comment if you want, but I think that there are genes around mitochondrial function and who is more susceptible to, or not susceptible, who can't recover, right? Where the spike protein is a greater threat. There's also the ACE gene, which is makes the ACE receptors that allows COVID to linger and continue to proliferate and, make COVID babies in your body, right? And so that's how it deposits its RNA in your cell, and that can be blocked. And that's where Dr. Berkel knows tools that there's the spike protein, but there's the virus also, and you don't deal with them the same way. Those are two different scopes of work that need to happen, right? So how do you stop the virus from continuing to develop? Um, so yeah, mitochondrial function, ACE, your glutathione pathways in terms of the underlying inflammation that would have already been there from other environmental factors, etc., which would create a terrain which is harder to repair, right? And last is the metabolic genes like TCF7L2, insulin resistance. If you're in poor metabolic health, all of this stuff is going to be worse, right? Okay, Aditya is saying, how do you detect the spike protein in the system? She's suggesting, so she's wondering, how do you actually test for spike protein? Is it the IgG Roche test for COVID? Is that even necessary, or what is your thoughts there?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific test for spike protein. You can do a test that suggests it might be there, but as far as I know, I'm not aware of a specific test that
I know that like LabCorp,
qualifies or quantifies spike protein in the system. Makes sense?
yeah, they are. I know that the big labs are doing spike protein testing now. I just don't know how accurate they are, right? Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's like this is something that hides in your mitochondria. It's kind of like going and doing a parasite test. You can't test something you can't find, even though it's there. These things know how to evade testing. So it's more like symptom based. If you got a vaccine or if you got COVID and 30 days later you still don't feel well, it's there, right? And it's really good at evading testing. So now Ken's saying, do we have to pay extra for the supplements and vitamins? That's a logistics question. So I don't know if somebody can answer that. In terms of the
So
program, oh,
I can do that for you, Kashif. The supplements, there are supplements that are going to be specifically selected and included in the program. Those supplements will be shipped to the patient every single month for the 6 months. The first month is the month of August, and they will have their clinical intake. They will have their interview with their practitioner. They'll establish their EMR and medical record account so that we can put them into the study. And then by the end of the month of August, their first round of supplements will be there. And hopefully their labs will be done by that time. So that gives them a good 30 days to get to the lab, get that information. All those labs have to be done pre-supplementation.
got it. And in terms of Medicare, I know HSA, FSA, blood work can be submitted to insurance. Medicare?
So we can give you a list to take to your provider, and Medicare will often allow the provider to write a list and then submit it. So it is generally covered.
Got it. Okay. Nestor saying regular medical doctors don't even acknowledge long haul COVID. So what is one to do? That's why we're here, Nestor. The whole point of what we're doing here is 40% of the calls I get today are from people that have long haul COVID that don't even know that's what they have. And and it's not that this is a secret. It's not that we don't understand what spike protein does to the body. It's just not being addressed because it's far more profitable to have 20 diseases to solve that linger forever than to have one foundational root cause that eliminates 20 diseases. So you have to understand the incentives of the industry, right? You have a $4.3 trillion healthcare system. They don't want that changing, right? So yeah, Nestor, that's exactly why this was developed because people are stuck and can't get help. And Dr. Berkel's been working on it for a solid year or more. He wrote a book about it, right? So, okay, Kathy, I've had long haul, had the COVID vaccine and also COVID. Does the spike protein go away after time, or does it stay in your system? Does it go dormant? If it is dormant, can it come back as an active protein? So does it go to rest and come back, or is it just constantly active?
Yeah, just my understanding of the spike protein is once it's in the system, it's in the system, and it's causing depending on how people react to it, chronic inflammation
Mhm.
or chronic damage to the mitochondria. or chronic damage to the joint, as that gentleman asked earlier, my tendons are deteriorating, or wherever it lodged, yeah, it's there and it's continuing to create chronic inflammation. And inflammation is what causes all the symptoms that we have for long COVID. So, yeah.
And Kathy, to the other part of your question, we haven't seen evidence of it going away, right? So whoever got a vaccine, whoever got the virus, it's like I can't point to someone who's reached the finish line, right? And so if you don't actively do something about it, just assume it's still in your body. Nestor, I've had GI issues coincidentally since round 2 of COVID, but it could be related to H. pylori and other things. How does one know if this is from having COVID? So there's 2 layers to that. There's you may very well have H. pylori, but what changed in terms of symptomatic expression post-COVID? Your immune system lives in your gut, 85% of it. And if you're going to compromise your gut with H. pylori, then like we said earlier, the other person with the tendon issues, which hardware fails first is a question of which hardware was already struggling with inflammation. Where were your habits not aligned to organ health? And so an organ that's already sitting at a 7 out of 10 inflammation, that's where spike protein will hit you more. Or when there's a high density of mitochondria in the organ, that's where spike protein will hit you more. So it's probably, Nestor, a little bit of both, which, yeah, maybe you very well had H. pylori, gut was in bad shape. But until you deal with the new insult of the spike protein, you have an internal source of inflammation that will never allow this to reach the finish line of healing, right? And that's the very first thing I talked to Dr. Berkel about, is that both need to be done. Through testing, yes, you have H. pylori, yes, you have metabolic issues, yes, you have whatever, but you also have this going on, and both need their individual path towards healing, and that's where everything is falling apart. There's some people just working on spike protein, some people are just working on the symptoms. Nobody's working on both in tandem in the right order of operations, right? Carrie, maybe I missed the intent of the study, but is the study focused on protocol to clear the spike protein? So yes, it's symptom tracking, meaning that there isn't one single thing. Everybody has different issues. So there's complexity of how does COVID spike protein and vaccinations lead to complications? And can we actually get people out of those complications, irrespective of what complication we're dealing with? And over again, dealing with the issue itself, which Dr. Berkel has dealt with, you name a health condition, but also layering on top of that the spike protein insult. And can we actually reach the finish line with both things going on? So yes, Carrie, it's about that in the context of somebody that also has poor metabolic health or poor something else, which is why it equaled a symptom, right? Kendra, can COVID cause arthritis? Itis means inflammation, right? So it can cause, yeah, for sure, cause any inflammatory condition. Michelle, can they identify what symptom they consider long haul COVID symptoms? Dr. Brokaw, I'll give it to you, but I think it's essentially any complication that's not your normal.
You look at the list, there are some things that are high on the list. Okay, high on the list, you're going to see the brain fog, you're going to see the fatigue, you're going to see those kinds of things. But most lists, go down to the end. Any change that's happened post-COVID, we have to assume it's spike protein COVID related. Makes sense? And so the best approach is very, very simple. Assume there's a cause that spike and so on. Assume there's inflammation, because there is. That's why you have an issue. Okay, so address the inflammation, but address the inflammation by addressing what may have caused the inflammation in the first place. So whatever the symptom is, this was not with me, before. Now I got COVID. Now I got the vaccine. Now, 3 years later, post 2020, 2021, I'm having these issues. Conventional medicine will look at your symptoms and address those symptoms. We say, no, let's go back to the beginning. Let's find a root cause. Let's work on fixing that root cause. And in fixing that root cause, we will alleviate and hopefully eliminate whatever the issue is.
Lee's asking about the connections between spike protein and thyroid. So what are we seeing with poor thyroid outcomes with spike protein?
Okay, it's spike protein, autoimmune issues. It's going to affect the thyroid. So poor issues with the thyroid is simply because we're addressing the thyroid, but we're not addressing the cause. Because until we get that inflammation under control, until we get that autoimmune issues under control, we're going to play with the thyroid, we're going to test and test, and we're going to adjust medicines. But that's all we're doing. We're managing. We're not addressing and resolving.
It sounds, it's like, multiple questions, but the answer is the same. And the answer is the same because the questions are based on assuming there's a different answer for a different problem, but it's all the same problem, which is, yes, there's a very real symptom you feel.
Mhm.
Why is it possible? And why wasn't it happening in 2019? Right? What changed? What changed is the context, COVID, spike protein, and vaccinations. Now the hardware has been affected. That thing is now possible. And why can't we get rid of it? Because you can't just deal with a symptom. It wasn't a switch that turned on for a disease. The underlying spike protein, vaccination, etc., created a train making it possible. Right? So it's the same answer for everything. Now, Christy's asking, remember she mentioned the paralysis of the diaphragm?
Yeah.
Can that be reversed? We know we can figure out the root and repair and stop the damage, but can we actually repair the paralysis?
Okay. Paralysis, the moment you think paralysis, you're thinking of nerve damage.
Yeah.
And the moment you're thinking of nerve damage, you're thinking of if it is correctable, it's long term. Because nerves heal at the rate of a millimeter a month.
Mm-hmm.
And most damage that happens to nerves, the myelin sheath, the covering of the nerve gets damaged, and then the nerve gets damaged. So it's getting the nerve healed, getting that myelin sheath healed, and in the meantime, it's returning function. Because if a diaphragm is paralyzed, it's not working somewhere in there, we have to get it doing its function. So in my game, in my way of looking at things, I never say never. We have to put the things in place. We have to get, the B vitamins. You can't, if it were a muscle on the outside, you can exercise it. But there's no way to really exercise the diaphragm. I'm sure there are exercises you can do, breathing exercises and so on, that'll help it. But I would give it an opportunity in terms of
Yeah.
yeah.
And I would say like the work you're going to do is functional and it's addressing the root, giving the organ a chance, but it's also there's other tools like regenerative tools where when somebody gets to this place where the terrain is good, you've dealt with the spike protein, there are things like exosomes and peptides and stem cells where if somebody wants to push harder, right? There's regenerative tools, but you don't want to go there until you've addressed the foundational terrain
The
issues.
basic cause, exactly
Yeah.
right.
So you're going to get someone to a place where they can make that decision where, okay, I'm here now. Maybe I will go get an exosome. And we can even help with that. If somebody gets to that point, we can help them sourcing sort of research molecules that are hard to get your hands on, right? That are regenerative in nature, that repair and regenerate. So that's possible too. Deborah Thompson Smith, hey, good to see you. Vision has declined. Remember, mitochondria of the eye, third highest density in your body is your eyes, right? So you're going to feel vision issues. I was the one who prolonged disruption. I was one who had prolonged distortion of smell and taste and continue to have taste issues with sugar, but I have not been diagnosed with long COVID. Is this study only for people diagnosed? Also, is a study for international. So she's in Barbados. Does it matter where somebody is?
As long as they can get their labs, sorry, Dr. Berkel, I apologize. As long as they can get their labs done, Kash, we can give a list of everything that we need to have done. People that have national health can use that. People in the UK, we've had a couple of people register there. They can take those lab slips in. So they should have no issue getting their labs done in Barbados and then having that information sent to us in a PDF.
Got it. Okay. But certainly, yeah, this sounds exactly like Hong Long Haul. Deborah, can the lungs be healed from the damage COVID-19 caused? Symptoms are similar to asthma. I want to return. I think it's the same thing we literally just talked about, which is you're going to do the work
Mhm.
to stop the cause. So it's like a question of my boat is leaky. You're going to plug the holes so the water stops leaking in, and then somebody has to come and shovel all the water out, right? That's the damaged lung. So in terms of damaged lung, there are a lot of regenerative tools. There are peptides. There are stem cells. When you do an IV stem cell, 70% of it ends up in your respiratory tissue, right? So there's a lot of stuff you can do if the terrain is ready for that work. You don't want to go jump to that until you've done the work of several months of detoxifying spike protein, getting the mitochondria in its best shape, cellular energy and inflammation. Energy up, inflammation down. That's what Dr. Berkel is going to do for you. Then the work you're going to do on your lungs will actually work, as opposed to the body being in this emergency saying, I don't have energy for that right now, right? Trying to work on the red flags. Joy,
Not,
I've been
not
able,
only that.
sorry?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to
No, it's okay.
yeah.
Just
In
next
terms
question.
of in terms of the lung, then we have to do additional things. We have to get a pulmonary function test. We have to see where we are. Make sense? Yeah. We have to remember with the lung, a big issue is fibrosis.
Right.
Yeah, the lung begins to scar. That's a hard thing to fix. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But my approach again always is, if I may not make it better, but if I could stop it from getting worse,
Yeah.
then I think I provided you a service.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to respiratory health. That's
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
you need to stop that progression. Joy, I've been unable to smell anything for almost 5 years since my first COVID infection. Can this program help me?
Again. Yeah, it's hard to say anything like that ahead of time like that. We'd have to we'll have to evaluate. But again, same cause caused the anosmia, the inability to smell. The spike protein, the inflammation, all those things. Those nerves in that area are damaged. That's why they're not functioning in terms of the nasociliary nerves and so on. Okay. So nerves are hard to heal. I've worked with post-herpetic neuralgia for 20 years. They heal very slowly. But over the years, in my 20 years working with post-shingles pain, I've had many people get better.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yep.
So it's just a matter of making that decision. I would like to give it a try. This is so disturbing in my life. This is so whatever it is. We know we're dealing with the nerves. We know we're dealing with slow healing, slow progression, and we talked about earlier about consistency and following through. Um, so it's a decision that you would have to make. There's no way to predict ahead of time, or we are addressing the basic cause. And if we address the basic cause, we are setting up the conditions for healing to happen.
Perfect.
Mhm.
The magnetic therapy you mentioned, that's literally magnets. Somebody's asking if it's PEMF. Do you mind just telling people a little bit about that?
Okay, okay, yeah. So yeah, magnetic therapy, basically talking about therapeutic magnets. Therapeutic magnets are solid magnets, and it's based on positive pole, negative pole. It's based on the Gauss strength of the magnet. Makes sense? So depending on what we're trying to achieve, we may use a different Gauss strength magnet. Depending on what we want to achieve, we may stack those magnets, because depending on how we stack them, it depends on how deep they penetrate. So we can stack magnets to penetrate as deep any organ inside based on how we stack the magnet. So it's just over the years, Dr. Philpott developed protocols for almost all illnesses. And he has a protocol for almost every illness that you can find, cancer and all those things. Okay. So it's just a matter of looking at what is, looking at what we need to do, looking at what level it is in the system, and then deciding what we need to do to reach that penetration. Once you start magnetic therapy, though, as long as you understand, again, it is consistency and it is duration, okay? Once you start magnetic therapy, you have to understand that it's going to be 6 months to a year before you begin to notice anything at all. Because how magnets work is, again, where there's inflammation, the tissues are acid. When the tissues are acid, there's no oxygen. What magnetic therapy does is reverse that. Reverse the tissues to alkaline. All of a sudden now oxygen is getting there. All of a sudden now healing is getting there. Make sense? Yeah. So yeah, that's how those magnets work. So it's just a matter of leaving it there long enough for those tissues for the acidity to reverse. Acidity reverses, oxygen begins to flow, more blood's getting there. You need to be consistent with it to maintain that. And then once that happens, inflammation begins to recede, tissues begin to heal. It's just a reverse process of what happens when inflammation develops. Except.
Yep. Are you familiar with Usnea, USNEA, Usnea?
UF.
USNEA, Usnea. I haven't seen it.
No.
No? Okay, sorry, Kevin. Neither of us have seen it. Mayor has a very base level question. What is a spike protein? How does it affect the body?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, spike protein is a name given to that unique protein, to that unique virus or class of viruses. Yeah, okay, it's and it affects by causing inflammation. It affects by destroying, okay? So if it happens to get into the mitochondria, it's going to destroy them. If it happens to get into tissue, it's going to cause them to be inflamed. The inflammation itself is going to affect the mitochondria. So it's almost, it causes a cascade in that sense. And so specifically, yeah, it's a name given to the protein in that particular class of viruses that causes that kind of reaction. Make sense? And so COVID happens to be that virus that has that particular protein called the spike protein that causes the cascade of events that many of you and many others are dealing with because of its effect.
Willie's question, I think we already know the answer. He's saying long haul has progressed to COPD. Does your program address that? It's the same answer, which is the COPD. Again, you're talking about the symptom or disease as if it's a separate thing. So the whole point of what Dr. Berkel's going to do with everybody is it doesn't matter what the condition is. Everybody has unique conditions that are triggered by this extreme inflammatory insult of spike protein. So both have to be considered: the state you're in, the condition itself, and the cause of that condition. And it's the same answer every time. So it's kind of like, doesn't matter what you ask about. If it started after you got COVID or you got the vaccination, it's the same answer, which is it's lingering because of a change in your terrain and state, because of a change of your mitochondrial health, because of an addition of an insult that causes inflammation, right? And irrespective, it's the same answer, right?
Yeah, so the COPD is obviously inflammation of the lung, from smoking, for whatever, toxins in the air. We may not make that better, but if we can clean things up and keep it from getting worse, monitoring your pulmonary function study, those kinds of things. Obviously, with something like that, you have a primary care physician who is, doing the basic stuff. But we can get results from him. We can look at them. We can evaluate them. We can look at where you've been with your COPD up until now, seeing if there's been a progression, see what caused it in the first place. And there may be other things we have to address because there may be an environmental issue that's precipitated your COPD, and you may need to get you out of that environment. Something in the house, something on your job, something in the, all those are things we have to factor in as a potential cause. But having the spike protein, having that inflammation in your system is not going to help.
Mm.
It's going to make things progress, of course. So
And
if the least we can do is arrest that, same time paying attention to all the other factors that could have been contributing to your COPD, because we still have to step back, look at the big picture. You always have to step back and look at the big picture.
yeah, and I would say even suppose you get to the point where Dr. Berkel works his magic, everything's better, you're feeling better, but the COPD is sort of stagnant, then we can start to explore regenerative tools or other tools beyond this, the what's happening here. Meaning there are other places where we could refer, and because of the network, we have access to stuff that typically is hard to get to, like research molecules like peptides and exosomes and stem cells, and then you can start to explore that stuff. And that becomes a question for you. Okay, I fixed the root. Now, how hard do I want to push on the state I'm now in because of the damage? There are tools to explore, right? Beyond this work, right? Isabella, I had COVID a few times, but not so recently. Also, I had the COVID vaccine. I suddenly had Bell's palsy in March. Ever since my whole body is out of whack, blood pressure is lower, heart rate higher, constant feeling of swaying back and forth like rocking on a ship, brain fog, trouble breathing like a pressure on my chest, pain around and behind my left ear on my skull. Could it be long haul COVID, even though I haven't been sick for probably 6 months? So her main question is all this stuff happened 6 months after COVID.
Okay. Okay. So each of those things, it's unusual to get a conglomeration of those symptoms due to any other cause.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The Bell's palsy may have nothing to do with it, but you're not going to get Bell's palsy, brain fog because you had Bell's palsy.
Mhm.
And you're not going to get heart palpitations. Okay. So you may have had a delayed reaction because of the COVID.
Yeah.
We don't look at COVID in that way, but when I work with post-herpetic neuralgia, when people got the virus, in fact, yeah, you get the shingles, not shingles vaccine, but the chickenpox vaccine and all that. The immune system keeps things under control for a while, and then it gives out. It's like when you're doing arm wrestling, you can keep going for a while, and then all of a sudden now the muscle gives out and you lose the match. So it's difficult to say in your case, but I can imagine, your immune system, whatever it was such that it kept things at bay, and all of a sudden now it gave out in terms of keeping things under control. And so the Bell's palsy, the brain fog, the cardiac issues, the other issues, fatigue, and all those things that happened. The other thing I mentioned is COVID. You think of many people have the COVID, okay, but they don't have the symptoms, the carriers, if you will. Makes sense. So for many of those months, you may have had the COVID in your system, but no COVID specific symptoms.
Hmm.
And then something happened that triggered enough to cause the cascade of events because you were compromised before, but not enough to give you COVID again in terms of the COVID illness. Makes sense? It's all gray. It's not black and white. But if you have this long COVID symptoms and you've had long COVID, even if it was delayed in coming, we have to put the two together. I have a standard saying, if it barks, it's a dog.
Yeah. And I agree with you that this kind of combination of symptoms, this is the kind of anomaly that we're only seeing because of COVID and post-COVID. This is not typical, how things, even with some rare cancers and stuff, the turbo cancers and how things are playing out, it's you can see when somebody's stuck on long haul. So with that, Dr. Berkel, I think this was an amazing discussion because people can see that it doesn't matter what we're doing or what we're working on. There's so many different ways people can be experiencing this, and so many people are stuck. And all those things, if you're trying to deal with them, typical allopathic medicine, just there's a fuel, there's a fire brewing that's fueling this stuff. And if you don't deal with that fire, your doctor can keep throwing whatever they want at this supposed condition or symptom, but it's an outcome of something else. It's not the standard path. And that fuel and that fire is very aggressive. That's the difference between this and everything else, which is why you hear a story like this with all these symptoms. You know, it's unlike any other inflammatory insult that we have had to deal with. So with that, it's awesome that this program is now officially launched. People will get the support they need. They'll finally feel better in the right way from both sides, both the medical side and the longevity wellness side. And we're going to be able to document and study this to also help other people. So with that, Dr. Berkel's awesome discussion. I'll throw it back to Tracy if she's here.
No, I went home, Cash. Guys, this has been fantastic. We've had a lot of great questions, people asking a lot of stuff in the chat. Really great job. We're super excited to be able to start this process and to create this study and really push some of the things that, you know, everybody's been told for a long time, like you said, Cash, right? If they don't have an answer, they keep just kind of shoving you off. And we want to find what those answers are if we can and contribute to a solution rather than a problem. So we're going to put the QR code up on the screen. We'll leave the webinar room open for 5 more minutes. Gentlemen, thank you both very much. It was a pleasure. My clinical team, thank you all for being here. Everyone that showed up and stayed and participated, we appreciate you, and everybody have a blessed day. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you too.